Welcome to Real Talk with Real Taxpayers, where we stay awake in a world that wants you asleep. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. If you don't mind, introduce yourself, Ariel. I know you're a total badass, and I don't want to do you a disservice. So if you don't mind giving us an awesome introduction.
All right. So my name is Ariel Ziegler. I am the owner of Heart and Soul Wellness. I have been in the coaching / mentoring space for, I can't count, 17 years now. So I started out in health and fitness. I was one of the top paid coaches for Gold's Gym for 8 years. In the corporate welfare, and I found that the dynamic of how they made training. Fun fact: gyms don't make money off of their membership; they only make money off of their coaching packages. So it creates a very codependent system. And I knew for a very long time I love my clients, but I validated staying, and I was like, this just doesn't work for me. Right in 2020, we all got shut down, labeled non-essential. I had a lot of trauma, a lot of experiences, saw a lot of death, murder, all those fun things earlier in my youth. Suppressed a lot of it. I was a brilliant coper, right? And I had my second suicidal attempt. And then I faced all my shit, found my business coaches, found my mentor who changed my life. After 10 years of failed talk therapy, he shifted everything for me. And I shifted from health and fitness into more of the mental behavioral. So clients work with me for 3 to 9 months and never need me or anyone in that sort of mental sabotage or loop or getting in our own way ever again, because then they have the tools. And honestly, we all have the tools. We just are conditioned to believe that we don't. So I work in human behavior, helping business owners get out of their own way, mentally, behaviorally, intimately, because we are only ever our greatest asset or greatest problem. So that's what I do.
Yeah, fantastic. I actually listened to your most recent podcast you're on because I wanted to see how deep you guys would go on some of the topics. So we didn't redo that.
Tiny snapshot.
And yeah, I got a little bit of a snapshot, and I'd love to use the opportunity to connect today because I know we've connected before briefly to go 5 layers deeper than that episode. I think that would be super cool.
Love it.
Something you mentioned when you guys were talking was you're like, I'm the type of person, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but you said I'm the type of person that well, why? And I need to know the why behind the why, and the why behind the why, and the why behind the why, and and I could relate to that a lot because I'm one of the most skeptical type of people you could possibly imagine, and my brain's very logic based, so you give anything even subconsciously to it and it's going to be well, what about this? And then it's and then it just ping pongs around those questions until you go down the rabbit hole deeper and deeper and deeper. So I relate to having craving to know the why behind the why and behind the why. And I'd love for you to go deep on that. You've had a journey of going through some crazy shit and really digging inside of yourself to find the answer to those questions and to those whys. And I want to dive almost into the metaphysical. I'm curious what you found going that deep into your rabbit hole.
Or in actually dying and coming back.
Yeah. Well, I had a near-death experience where I saw hell, and and I came back from that, and it shattered every perception or every filter that I've built up since childhood up till adulthood. And I didn't realize to that point, but there's hundreds of layers of perceptions and filters and ego defense mechanisms and
millions,
all these things that we built up as we grow.
Yep.
And I got to the point where in one instant, all of that got shattered down to childhood zero or ground zero, whatever you want to call that. And I had to confront all of me and and of course ego death, me confronting me and all that stuff. So I'd love to hear your story and your journey and what you extracted from that. I know you, from the past time we talked, you said you believe in reincarnation. I'd love to dive into that topic and just kind of go down that rabbit hole.
Which one? Where do we start?
Well, take us through a cohesive journey because the listeners aren't going to know anything. So give us a brief, what caused you to go into that, a little bit, dive into, tell us what being in that looked like, and then what you saw, what you extracted. I have a feeling you got a insight to higher intelligence or God or whatever you want. You refer to that. So I'd love to see what you extracted from that.
Well, I know the original topic of the podcast, this was to be in flow state.
Flow state.
It's actually
Yes.
going to go directly into that. Flow state is a physiological byproduct, right? It is characterized typically by athletes with a high HRV, high amount of resilience. There's certain biochemical reaction markers. There's dopamine, but there's also adrenaline going on. But it's not to the point of what we call hypervigilance, where it's actually a high beta brainwave. It's more of an alpha theta brainwave. So the amygdala is deactivated, and the mental chitter chatter is non-existent because the heart is in sync with it. And the heart is 5,000, has a 5,000 hertz, I forgot the measurement, but 5,000 times stronger than the head when we're talking about just how it radiates, right? Because we can all agree, based off of science or esoterics, we are all beings of energy. Like, we can measure that, right? And the frequency of our brainwave state dictates our perceptual awareness. So when we're in a hypervigilant state, we're in that high beta brainwave. The mental chitter chatter is very, very loud. High cortisol and adrenaline synergistically. Your perceptual bandwidth is limited, very, very narrow to deal with the perceived threat that's in front of you. It is get away from this threat, deal with whatever that is. The problem is a lot of Western indoctrination and culture is this hustle, grind, bro mentality that is chronically in that state. You can get to high HRV when you have a downregulation. So the nervous system has a spectrum. It has like the upregulation and then the downregulation. Upregulation with downregulation increases HRV. If you're chronically in upregulation with no downregulation, it just creates a whole cascade effect of oxidative and free radical damage to the body, stress response, and you actually create low HRV. Think of it like a gym, right? You go to the gym, you work out, you lift, you break the body down, but then you go and you eat and you rest and you recover and you become stronger. If you do not do that second component, you become weaker, right? Yeah. So our nervous system, everything in life has to have balance. I'm a firm believer in balance, and former type A, high achiever, all those accolades, Western indoctrination, I can tell you, I've been there. It doesn't work. So I used to be that way, right? I used to be very, number one in the company, number one in the region, whatever it is, corporate wealth sphere. And I, quote unquote, was successful, but mentally completely burned out, exhausted, hated my life, went home and cried myself to sleep, had anxiety and panic disorder, had to smoke weed or take benzodiazepines to go to sleep. And that's why I'm thankful for COVID, because it made me face this stuff. The near-death experience that probably had the most influential impact for me. We are aware of our mental dialogue, right? Yep. It comes up. It's trying to analyze. It's trying to strategize. It comes from previous experiences or experiences it has observed in other people's lives, right? We call this the default mode network in neuroscience. It is your subconscious. It is your ego. It is just trying to create the best projection that it has of the next steps in your life based upon its previous information. It has neurons, but so does the heart. The head has far less intelligent neurons than the heart does. The heart actually syncs up with the electrical magnetic field of everyone that is within, I forgot how large, but like 5-mile radius or so, because it's able to actually expand. The head is not capable of doing that. So the heart is much more aware of where we are at any given moment and the potentials that are also available, which gives us the ability to have intuitive abilities, whereas the head is extrapolating based off of previous experiences. So if we allow the head to premeditate or create decision points, it will typically project past onto potential, and we create a hamster wheel of life, right? After my sixth near-death experience, I was extremely aware of the mental chitter-chatter and what it was doing. It was driving me to create this illusion of safety, which is what the mind always does if you're chronically stressed. It wants to maintain homeostasis, even if where you're at is really unhealthy, because at least that unhealthy is known, right? So it will project and project and project, and the majority of people will continue to listen to that. My intuition at that point, which is linked to the heart, was extremely loud as well. And it told me it said, don't go on the freeway, don't go here, don't go to the gym, and I ignored it. I was like, I need to go do leg day. We just had a 3-day training for tactical games, and I ignored it. I got pushed there was a giant truck on the Austin, Texas freeway. I got pushed into the median barrier. I hit the median barrier. I bounced. I flipped 3 times and I left my body. And
Wow.
as I left my body, I heard you're falling down the rabbit hole. And I was no longer a body. I was just this consciousness, this awareness of everything. And I heard slash knew. And if you know intuition, it's like a knowing. It's not an audio so much, just a knowing. You have accomplished a lot. You know exactly what you need to do. It is not your time yet. We are just here to remind you of your path. It's time to go home. And I saw it was like this giant void of nothing, but it was not in a point of fear. It was more like a womb, like it was like a coming home and this feeling of love that was omnipresent. And we feel it when we're with loved ones, we feel that, but it was because there was no body. It was just everything. And it was amazing. And I got sucked back into my body quite rudely. And I wake up and everybody is screaming and yelling and I am on my side. My arms ripped open to the bone. The car's completely collapsed into itself. Everybody thinks I'm dead. And I'm like completely at peace. Like just like chilling. I'm like, I can't move. Maybe can't walk again. Oh well, cool. I'll navigate this reality. I'm obviously meant to still be here. Couldn't contact anyone really for 2.5 days. I had bullets and shrapnel all over me because of all the ammo in the back. Get carted off to the ER. They kick me out after. I remember sitting in the ER. My arm is laid open to the bone. The meds had worn off and I'm screaming for meds. And then I'm like, hold on a second. If your perception is reality, maybe I can change this, right? So I look at my arm and I'm like, I'm not going to fight this. It is what it is, right? That this pain is just a choice. So I look at it and it's almost like the Terminator, you know, when he cuts his arm open. And I literally remember looking at my arm and the sinews and I'm like flexing my arm. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm just not going to decide to feel into this. And maybe it was the adrenaline, you know, maybe it was all that, but it was extremely painful. And all of a sudden, before I knew it, there was no more pain. And they come in and they're like, why were you yelling? I was like, well, because of this. And they finally give me the meds. They literally just put a patch on it and say, hey, you're good to go. I go and I check myself in the hotel, fly out the next morning. I was at jiu-jitsu on Monday. That's another conversation. Anyway, that was, my coach looks at me. He's like, you're not rolling live. And I was like, okay, I'll do technique. So that was one. 1 month later, I did the same thing. You would think I was very hard-headed, right? I totally ignored it. Went on a trail. I was like, no. It's just a 2-mile trail. He said, do not go on the trail. I went on the trail. 1/4 mile in, I feel a sharp pain on the back of my ankle. I turn around and a 6-foot rattlesnake is recoiling.
Oof.
I look at it. I look at my ankle. He disappears. By the time he disappears, I already feel it coming up to my calf. I sprint through brush to get to the freeway, call my friend. I'm like, hey, I just got bit by a rattlesnake. I need to get to the ER. And he calls 911, get picked up, go in there. And at this point, I'm sitting there looking up at the ceiling and I'm totally delirious and I'm laughing. And I'm like, okay, God, I get it. We need to stop. From that day forward, I changed everything.
Yeah.
Yep. I was like, no more of this mental chitter chatter. We know exactly what it is. You continue to endorse it. You're going to continue this path, right? I had been wondering for a long time why all these things kept happening because I had a very quote unquote traumatic life, death, murder, poverty, been homeless, all those fun things, autoimmune disorders. It's because I was ignoring. Like literally, it's right here. I was ignoring. That changed everything. That was 2021, I believe. And my entire business changed. I started listening instead of mentaling. And ever since then, my business has been run that way. I teach by that way. I start getting into heart-head coherence, which actually directly links into flow state. And that's where I've been living ever since.
Wow, that's so much to unpack. I appreciate you sharing that. That's amazing. That reminds me of our first conversation where it's like the analogy of in hindsight looking back and you're in the maze and you're just like yelling at the past you like, just go left, dude.
Yeah, just go left. Yeah, literally.
It's right there. And
just walk through it. It's okay.
yeah. But when you're in the storm and you're in the heat of it, there's so much outside noise. It's hard to take a breath and pull yourself away and to be like, what's the big picture? And 3 other things to relate to. One, especially for the listeners, I know you said like your heart has more sensors than your brain, and that's not just like metaphysics. Like there's
There's
Harvard
science.
studies on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is science where it's like you can literally walk into the room and alter people's energy and
Yep.
moods in the room based on your moods and energy. And this is like scientifically observed that there's like like to level of chemical transfer
Mm-hmm.
from like your aura or the energy you're putting out. So this isn't like mumbo jumbo. Y'all can go down the rabbit hole, and this is legitimate research. We have data on this now. Two, it's incredible that you like to tie this into, I think there's like pivotal forks in the road in our lives where we kind of like we have that, like where free will really plays a choice. And of course you have free will, like do you want to eat a burger, do you want to eat a hot dog? But I think like the core elements of free will are those like fork in the path roads that you can either like do something hard and like learn something and like take that leap of faith, or continue on in the same journey and down that dead end, so to speak, to relearn that lesson again. And I think that's really where that intuition like comes in. And I feel like when we don't listen to it, it's going to come back
We
as another
relearn.
lesson.
We will. The same lesson will be presented in different ways until we learn the lesson. And so I was like, all right, we're done learning these lessons. I don't want to die. Like get to this point anymore. My body is tired. And it is the default of the human. Here's the thing: it's the balance of the mind, the body, and the soul. Right? The body, and if the body's chronically stressed, it's going to default to the mind because it literally just wants this illusion of safety. And so the default mode network, or the subconscious, the ego, is very loud. It's a survival response. And unfortunately, Western culture and indoctrination has severely conditioned that. There's also my theories in playing into grandiose marketing and all that, but just it feeds the machine. Because when we're disconnected from who we are, we feed into their dopamine high that keeps us from who we actually are, which is able to pull ourselves out of that centralization that they're trying to control us into. When we're more connected with our intuitive abilities, we're able to think more objectively, which keeps them from their vice of control. But that's another rabbit hole.
Yeah. And I feel like for folks that have gone through a near-death experience to the point where they've like, before mine, I really wanted to believe in God and the
Mm-hmm.
afterlife and all that. And then after mine, like I just knew. I went from wanting to like really, really,
Yep.
really wanting to believe to like, I just know. So I've noticed there's just so much less stress
Mm-hmm.
and anxiety around just everything in general in my life, because the things that used to seem so important now in hindsight of like, I just know there's this eternal, life afterwards, that all of a sudden is not that important anymore.
Well,
And that all of a sudden is not that scary anymore. And that all of a sudden is like, well, now I kind of want to go through that because I'm going to grow my soul more. And that's kind of the point. So how do you help folks that haven't been through an experience like that?
well,
How do
your
they,
question right there, right? I
yeah,
thought it was important. Who told you? Who
yeah,
told you that was important, right? Who conditioned you to that? Because many people are like, oh, this is my belief. No, it's not, right? We
no,
are conditioned from day one. We are conditioned, good girl, bad girl. This is wrong. This is right, right? That this is your belief. This is no. Be it. Sit down. Raise your hand, right? So we are conditioned into authority. We are conditioned to a moral hierarchy. This is not wrong or right. This is just awareness.
yeah,
Who taught you what they taught you? Whose beliefs are you following, and why are you following them? Is it because you think mentally you should, or is it because it resonates within your body? Our body has, our heart, right, has more wisdom than the mental constructs of society can ever give us. Esoterics has been speaking about this for a millennia. And yes, I use science, and the beautiful thing is a lot of science is actually merging with what the esoterics have been saying for a millennia. Some of it not so much, but like you said, the Heart Math Institute right now, guys, if you are watching this, you got to go and look at and read their information. I use a lot of their stuff in my protocols for nervous system regulation, because if a system is chronically hypervigilant, you can't access that wisdom, right? Because it is so loud. And it was a tiny little itty bitty voice and knowing for me for a very long time. But the more I died, the louder it became. And until I finally was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't.
So do you think step one for someone that's hasn't been through that, is it to remove noise?
Down regulate, remove noise. Yeah. And how can you remove noise? How can you remove distractions? Also, you want to ask yourself, why am I distracting myself? That's a good question, right? If you are distracting yourself, it is because you are not where you are supposed to be. I deal with a lot of addictions, either actual addictions or just addictive tendencies. And these things are
Yeah.
great dopamine high, and it actually hijacks your system from being able to endogenously. So you have exogenous, this is exogenous, and endogenous dopamine, which is regulated in your gut. So I typically have my clients, I work on their gut, because if your gut is able to regulate itself, you're actually making what you need to neurochemically, so you're not as dependent on these external modalities to get that dopamine high. It hijacks your ability, your perception, your ability to show up in your business, your ability to show up with your family, your ability to show up in athletics. So like you said, quiet the noise and ask yourself, why am I even distracting myself with noise? Simple, basic breathing. Like, just do that. Do a heart head coherence. 5 seconds in, pause, exhale for 7 seconds. Do that first thing in the morning before you go to bed. Even that, if you are chronically stressed, will start to change your life.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's also an element of like there's the soul piece of you which you experienced in your near death, and there's the body piece of you where I think that's the gym, that's the training. Like the body is this is all the emotions and the chemicals and the challenges and stuff. That's how the soul grows. You put it in the body and you're like, cool, now navigate through all this where everything's trying to silence you, and it's like hardest level of difficulty now. So I think there's a huge thing to be said for working on the physical side of things, because the physical side of things is what's going to help the mental side of things. And of course, when you're in depression, when you're stressed, all you want to do is just curl up in a ball and not do anything, or like turn it off. And the number one thing you should do is move, breathe, do
Get in the
something.
sun.
And
Get in the sun as well. Like
yeah,
we have a huge amount, an epidemic of lack of sun exposure because of these computer things, and people just hold themselves up. We are beings that are supposed to be in the light, right? There's a lot of information and data coming out as far as like the solar flares actually informing our human evolution as well. So if you're a human being who's holding up inside, you're going to have a vitamin D deficiency, which is going to, you would be surprised by how many people I've helped with depression just by fixing their vitamin D exposure and supplementation. Because if we don't have that, we're not making serotonin. If we're not making serotonin, our mood is going to tank. Our serotonin is also responsible for 95% of your serotonin is in your gut, and it's responsible for as a cofactor for neuroplasticity, rewiring of the brain. So if you have a serotonin deficiency, you cannot rewire the brain and start to shift your identity and the construct of how you operate in this reality.
to piggyback off of that, do you feel what is the construct to operate in this reality? Like, what's the goal?
It's your choice, right? And I believe that is the purpose of the soul each time. So I've seen previous lifetimes. Whenever I travel to a certain place, typically it's because I get a calling there. Like when I went to Egypt, I saw a past life as to I was a slave who was helping build the pyramids. I still remember, fun fact also, if you're into all this, there are coils underneath the pyramids as well that they recently found. You go in there and it hums. Like the entire place is humming and echoing. And I know truth when my spine, and it makes sense within esoterics, the spine is basically the core of your being. Whenever my spine lights up, I know that it's truth. And it, like my entire body, chills. Everybody's a little bit different as to how their intuitive abilities sit in their system. I'm sure you have your own knowing as to how that shows up within your life. But I mean, I've had flashbacks there. I've had full recall within a previous lifetime in Norway. Went to Norway recently, and that all came back to me. I got into what they call Akashic record reading after the car accident. I reached out to my mentor and I said, when you said you're not from here, what did you mean? He said, email this woman. Got into the Akashic records, which is in the Bible, it's called the Book of Life. Within the Hinduism, it's called the Akashic. Of course, there's not much science behind it, but it's across the span of things. It's basically a giant library of every single soul that has ever existed in existence. It has records of karma, records of all the different lifetimes. So I went through and found mine, and then I also became formally trained in that area as well. So sometimes if clients decide to come to me for that, I will do that. It's not a main thing, but I do that, and I've done it for myself and friends dozens and dozens of times at this point.
Is that like a quantum hypnosis regression?
Or
is that a reading?
It's a meditative state in which I leave my body. And so there's a whole practice of breath work, and intentional space creating, and I leave my body and then I come back. So it's like literally leaving into, and we know this, there's different dimensions. We can also prove that. We can prove the reality is non-locally real. There's multiple universes, all that stuff. And that's why we live in a really great era, is a lot of this stuff is being proven. It's just, they can't tangibly quantify it within papers. So the scientists are still kind of wigging out over it. But consciousness, I believe, will very soon end up circumventing physics as the basis of reality. It's just how long, right?
Yeah.
It's another conversation as well. And for those of you who are watching, my entire academia background was hard sciences. I have a master's degree in nutrition and in physiology. I went back and got some neuroscience and some psychology. So I have a lot of formal science, and that was the hardest part. But once you see these things, you can't unsee them, right? And then it's like, how do we merge that and try to pull as much data that can actually be proved within the Western to meet the East? But yeah, it's a meditative state. Leave my body, find whatever is the clients are requesting, and then quote unquote clear the records per their request. It's all about request. If not, it's considered trespassing, and that is not a good thing that you want to deal, because that's when like entities and things like that start to come on board.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I think the funny part is everything comes from an infinite. God is infinite, right? Mm-hmm. So absolute infinity. So like us like mere mortals, like we're getting close to the science, and it's like that. Sure, we got to the 99, and then like there's still an infinity from 99 to 100, and like you get down like 10 more percent, you're like, oh, we're a breakthrough, and then it's like it's always going to be an infinity.
The more I know, the more I know nothing at all.
Yeah, I think that's the funny part about science. Some people like really like cling to the science as like this absolute, and it's like it's our best guess, and it's always just going to be a best guess, and there's still an infinity between where we are and what the truth is. And if we were to know that infinity, we would be God. So we are to not know and to explore that for an infinity.
And it's being okay in the not knowing, right? It is allowing yourself to lean into that outside of the mind. And it's funny you say that too, because have you ever looked at dark matter? They're like, dark matter is like, the majority of the universe is dark matter, but we know this one, right? And yet science is still so rigidly holding on to that. But, and that goes into the why, right? So piggybacking back into the beginning when you said the why, there is a point at which you have to let go of the why, because the why actually keeps you in the thought loop and keeps you from experiencing what's actually meant to be experienced. So, and I believe that comes from a place of intention, right? Is the why coming from a place of fear and scarcity? Might be time to start leaning back into your body and just be okay with the not knowing. Because when we actually shift into that not knowing, we are creating a sense of trust and ease within our system despite the fear of the unknown. And that is where you really start to increase your resilience and your capacity to be able to navigate any sort of situation.
Especially in the now, like being present in the now. That was when I went to a past life regression session, I saw a past life too. I can't pinpoint the exact location, but it was sandy, like Persia-esque vibe, and I saw past death. And
that's wonderful.
I don't have a lot of like info on that past life, but for whatever reason, I just knew that my failure in that past life was holding on to principality. And like being very like principled instead of like unwavering, like, no, this is how it should be. And it's like, well, it's not. So are you willing to die for that?
Yep.
And that was very interesting for me, because that was like, I feel like a big lesson I had to learn in this life is being okay with not being able to go all the way down that rabbit hole and not having an answer. And I sought like past life regressions and mentors and gurus to like get that answer, and the answer just kept coming back as you already know what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
And stop asking so many questions and like live in the now. Like that is the point, is to operate within the now to the best of your ability, and you can do anything you want.
Well, and the only reason that why ever comes up is the function of a thought loop is typically to keep you in a thought loop. So it's trying to create an ending to that loop, and it's typically to reinforce whatever identity you're operating out of. So, but we are not our identities. So with our hats that we wear, right? We all have multiple identities. You know, some of them are extremely separate and some of them are very merged. But none of them are us. We are, as you know, the consciousness that is observing.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's the, do you hear the tree fall when no one's looking at it?
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
does the tree make a sound when no one's in the forest?
Well, in 2022, they found that it does not, right? Because the perceptual awareness of the observer is what creates that sound, not the tree falling. This is all simulation. All of this.
Which is pretty crazy. Same with like the split atom or the
Yep.
split light.
Yep. The
The
double
slit
split experience.
experiments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were some of
Yeah,
the
they
most
proved if you're not looking at it, it
it does
somehow magically
magically,
functions differently.
well, because it's the wave. All of this.
Yeah.
So you close your eyes, the wavelength there, it is your this that creates the merging of the illusion of this tangible reality, right? And you're actually never really touching someone ever.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel like it because of the pushback within the molecules pushing back against each other or whatever it is. Maybe that's what we know as of
Right.
yet. But you're technically never actually touching anyone. You're just getting very, very close. And you're never touching anything. If you were to
Yeah,
take
which is-
all the mass of everything in the world and push it together and take away the space, it would fit on top of that eraser.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. That we
Yeah.
do know as of
Wow.
yet.
The Big Bang.
That's
Allegedly.
another conversation.
Well, that's fascinating. What other cool insights have you been able to extract around the reincarnation and the multiple lives?
I feel that that's highly individual. I do believe, based upon my experiences, because I've recalled about 13 of them, fragments, some of them a little bit more, some a little bit less. You can't seek it. Like, there's a timing for each one of them, and I get the pull. Like, I feel you need to go here. You need to go here now. You need to go here now. There's something for you here now. And every single time I have listened since 2022, I've met certain individuals to enhance my own life experience, my business's experiences, my ability to help serve others, as long as I listen. And then certain parts of those memories, like the one in Norway, I was able to create a connection with someone, able to host something, help a whole bunch of people there that I wouldn't have otherwise. And also it's almost like a reclamation of the previous life that wasn't fully finished out. So it was like, hey, this is your mission from this life you didn't finish. This is the time to finish it, right? And I do truly believe that there are certain parts of each life that we aren't fully able to finish, and then we're given the opportunity within this life to finish them out.
Mm.
And that's what typically creates. And I have a lot of friends, I call them my soul pod work, and a couple others where they're like, I have a feeling this is my last one. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. You're off to the next planet or whatever it may be. And then I have a couple who that's probably the case. But my current perception, I say current perception because that can change at any time, is that there are multiple players, right? Everybody's a player in this game.
Yeah.
And so they're always ever, because I get intuitive knowings and clairvoyance for certain things that come up. Like I knew last year when a bombing was going to happen in Israel, I knew when gold was going to start to skyrocket, and I didn't listen and lost out on certain things. But there are multiple options at any given moment. There's millions, technically speaking. And the players in the game will dictate the choice points that are presented. So we can have certain knowings, but those knowings may not always pan out because the other people also have free will.
Absolutely. I think I asked you this the first time we connected. Have you read the book Journey of Souls, or have you heard of it?
You did ask me. I downloaded it, but I've not listened to it. I've gotten 5 million, lots of books, but I will finish that. But please tell me what we're going to continue.
Very interesting. I think more so too for the listeners, because the topics we talk about those are two books, which I also believe was in one of those moments where it's like, listen to your intuition, because then just follow your intuition unknowingly. And my intuition's like, you need to be in Texas. And I was like, why? Like, you just need to be in Texas. I'm like, cool. Yeah. So like, I was also coming off of like my experience, which ironically was also during COVID. And I was in a point where I'm like, I don't care why. I'm just going with the flow. And I was in such, I also feel like that's an element of being in flow, is going with the flow instead of against the grain or against the flow. Is when life's like, hey, this is like not necessarily the path of least resistance, but like it might be very scary, but like this is where your soul is like carrying you, and being in that kind of carrying state. I'm moving to Austin, Texas. Never visited, never been here. Moved to Austin, Texas. Within like a couple months of being in Austin, Texas, met my soulmate. Got engaged, like literally like this, searching for that my whole life. And it's like the most like effortless, frictionless experience. That it was just like, trying to find that perfect person, and it's like, no, she's here. Here we go. And it's like, and then while here, I had another experience like that where it's like, just followed my intuition and met two folks where we went out to lunch and just spur of the blue, talked with them once. My parents connected with them. My mom and her became best friends, like just magically. Went out to lunch with them. First time I met them, like ever. And they're like, hey, check out this book. We feel like you might like it. Journey of Souls. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, immediately, like, look, like, getting that book, I'm like, I knew this was meant to be.
Yep.
And the thing that I was seeking, like really digging deep of like, why, I like finally was like, I let that go. I'm okay with not having the why. And then it's like, cool, now that you're okay with it, here are the answers you were looking for.
When you stop thinking, the answers show up. Yep.
Yeah. And so a fun little tidbit for the viewers, if they're curious, read Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls. I don't care if you're a Christian or whatever you are. It's not going to really contradict anything that that you believe so much. And two, the conversation we had, these are books that go into like, for the curious people like myself that really love imagery and imagining things, they really dive into painting a picture of, to the best of our ability. We've interviewed thousands of people and we've asked them same kind of experiences and questions we're talking about today. And these are people that have been able to gain access to previous life or see things, and this is how they describe that. Mm-hmm. And it's a compilation of thousands of interviews put into 2 books. And the commonalities of all those interviews. So it's very interesting. It's like life between lives, like between coming back. What does that look like? How does it work? That library of life or book of life. How do you describe that? How does that operate? To the point of like, your pets, do they go into heaven? It's like, yeah, well, how does that work? Let me explain how that works.
Well, I mean, if everything is conscious, then yes, it is, right? Everything has an energy. Obviously, there's a degree of consciousness, and like, so that there's a book that I would also suggest for readers, Reality Unveiled, and it has the science background, and it also has more of the esoteric as well. So it goes into quantum mechanics, it goes into quantum entanglement, then it starts to pull in things like aliens and how aliens have actually been proven, declassified files, and all those fun things. And animals and plants are like 2D, so they're in the second dimension, whereas we're in 3D, which is choice. We are in choice. Animals are not necessarily in that. So yes, there is a conscious awareness associated with that, and then that choice goes into love, the choice to love or not to love, and the universal kind of solvent for everything is love, which is when we can vibrate, we can measure that in hertz now. And actually, fun fact, they recently found that integrity is higher than love in frequency. So your soul, integrity to your soul, is the highest possible frequency that a human being can actually resonate at. And that's also why I believe, like you said, when you listen to flow, which is integrity of the soul, not the mind, we start to get led to exactly what we're supposed to be in this lifetime. And that's why I think you found your soulmate. I've had very similar experiences, not my soulmate, but like that's actually how I, believe it or not, that's how I use leads. That's how I find leads. I listen. And that's typically, it's like, this person needs something. And sometimes it's just a conversation. Sometimes it's something more. It's how I found my best friend. It's how I found the mother. Like, I became best friends with another woman and became the godmother of her children. I just messaged this woman randomly. She was on my Facebook, and we had a conversation for 6 hours. And we became best friends, and I'd never even met her in person. And a year later, I was named the godmother of her child and flew out and spent 2 weeks with her like I'd known her my entire life, because we've had multiple lifetimes before, and we started to have those recollections. My best friend, who I've worked with, also, he hired me. I've known him multiple times, right? We also are able to recollect certain things. And I feel that when you meet people that are of a similar, like, you've known each other, it also enhances that recall a lot faster. But there's also a feeling, there's a knowing, and I'm sure you've also experienced that.
I think and it's funny, the books also go into that, and they refer to that as your soul group, that you do lives over and over and over with your soul group, and you just know that, like, the people in your life that you're like, that's a main character, and like, you just know, and it's like,
and they're across the globe, but you still just like, you found them somehow.
And I think it's a lot easier to be attuned to that the more noise you remove. One last thing I want to mention about the books, and I think this is, I just I don't know what you feel about like ranking the beauty, but I've been so appreciative of the beauty of like how
Life?
good of a play, yeah, life, just
Yeah,
like who could have written a better story? It's just so beautiful and
it is.
ironic and sarcastic and witty and funny, and like it's like if I were to look at like the perfect movie or the perfect sitcom in hindsight for some of these things where you're like in flow, you're like, I couldn't have written a better scene. Like,
Right?
of
Yeah.
course, the main character at this point that's when it happens, and it's like, I just think it's so beautiful. And to take back, I got a lot of interest into this in high school in an apologetics class, a study of theology and reason,
Hmm.
and I had a fantastic teacher that was he just didn't he was like there, and he's like, hey, that was a really good question you asked. Let's just throw the whole curriculum of today to the side and let's have an awesome class debate around that. And I was just like, I just loved it.
That's awesome.
And one day I remember I asked him, I was like, what do you imagine heaven to be? Like, you spent so much time studying theology. And he went and he like really thought about it. And I want to share this because I think this is really cool. And he's like, imagine you're a caveman and you were born in this cave, and it's like all you've seen is darkness. You've never seen the light. You've never seen anything. You wake up in this cave, you eat there, you go to the bathroom, you go to sleep. And then once a week, there's like a light that gets cast like way far in the cave, and it just projects a faint outline of a tree in 2D on the wall. And like that one time a week, like you look forward to that because that's the coolest thing you've ever seen. Just this like casting of an outline of a tree. And he's like, now imagine that caveman steps out of that cave for the first time and sees a 3D tree and like the whole world. Like, he's like, I feel like that's the closest I can come to describing of coming from this world to like heaven or the afterlife, whatever you want to call it.
I like
And
that.
it's like, and that's from that moment on, I've just been fascinated with the imagery of like trying to imagine in our primitive like biological brain and mind like what this clearly higher dimensional experience would look like and feel like. And I think that's the beautiful part of those two books is they do their best job at describing the imagery of that. And I think that's why they're very fascinating.
I do feel when I left in the car, I was right before that because, like I said, like the viscerality and the energy of that was there's nothing that you can ever like. There's nothing that I can compare it to. Really, it's very difficult. But yeah, I got to read that book. That sounds like a wonderful. Have you ever had an experience in which there was a time I was hiking and I have not been able to recreate this. Totally sober. I literally was hiking and just a measure of gratitude, right? It was just hitting me for, like you said, the beauty of everything. And all of a sudden, I was not in my body. I was seeing everything from the plants. And like I felt naked, but simultaneously like this heightened sense of awareness and aliveness that I've never experienced in a body before, but I was also experiencing it through the plants and them witnessing me and talking to me at the same time. Fun fact, you need to watch the telepathy tapes about that as well, as far as communication with plants and animals.
That's also been actually scientifically proven to this level that plants have like
Communicate.
way higher energy and like presence than we ever thought.
So that book, Reality Unveiled, the gentleman talks about, I forgot the name of the experiments, but there was a gentleman who actually set a plant up with a polygraph. And this is documented. He put the plant with the polygraph, and he was like, let's see if we can measure any sort of cognitive response, right? So he started thinking about burning it, and it freaked out. It went into distress. It started to have all the signs of going into a sympathetic response. And he was just thinking. And then he's like, okay, he stopped thinking about it, and it calmed down. And then he did it again, and it freaked out. And then he was like, okay. And then he walked out of the room thinking about getting the matches, and it went off the charts. So I'll find the name of the study so you can get it for your readers. But it's recounted in that book about this scientist who was like, let's see if there's consciousness of plants, let's see if we can measure it. And sure enough, hooked it up to a polygraph.
I haven't experienced quite what you just experienced with the plants, but I trust my intuition more than anything, if that makes sense. Like even history, it's like well, history and this and absolute. I'm like, well, who wrote it? Like, who decided what perception or what point of view to write that
We
in?
want to start
What did
going
they
into
omit?
we want to start going into the history, how much it omitted, especially about
Yeah.
Judaica, Jesus, all that. Fun fact, guys, Jesus did mushrooms, but that's another conversation. There's a lot of stuff that was hidden and kicked under the rug. So I did a shaman training called Sailor, Scandinavian Norse mythology and magic. And we went into how Jesus actually and Mary Magdalene overlapped with Scandinavian and Norse. And there's a lot of suppressed history where he actually used medicinal mushrooms and different forms of plant medicine. And you've probably seen a lot of theories as to plant medicine being synergistic with human evolution and
Yeah.
the mental abilities.
No, for sure. And it's so for that reason I follow my intuition above everything, because it's like this the compass in here is not going to be it's I don't know how to explain it. Just intuitively, it's going to guide me better than anything I can listen to. And where was I going with that? I just had
My
a
bad.
no. That's okay. That's totally okay. Yeah, even like Book of Elijah and stuff like. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. With that, like the point in history where the Bible was compiled was the point where the church and literally the church and the state came together, like the
Mm-hmm.
Roman government and the
Yep.
church. So it's like I don't think it's a stretch to think what we like how we perceive our government today. And you're like, if you'd ask the average person, do you trust the government? Like, no.
No.
So why would we think that it would be any different like a couple thousand years ago? And do you think they would have the best intentions when putting that together, or do you think they would put it together in the way where it's like just same MO as today, like 9 truths, 1 lie,
Yep.
or 9 truths, 1 omission? But with the like, if I had to think like what was their main intention, that's to control the masses.
Yep. And they did it.
And do you think it's easier to control people that are fearful or people that are like, oh yeah,
I'm
I'm
empowered.
totally aware and
Yeah.
I'm empowered and
Yep.
I'm finding my soul. So I think it's intuitively it makes a lot of sense for me that there was a lot of stuff suppressed on purpose to control the masses more easily.
Well, also
And then
the Bible that is written, that is the most commonly accepted, New King James, he was a known pedophile and homosexual, the one who decided to edit that. And the New King James version was written by Paul, the one apostle that never actually met Jesus. So it was all his information, and it has a darker taste towards Jesus. And whereas you look at the other apostles and they have an entirely different viewpoint, especially if you read the individual books. And if you want to start going more so towards what Jesus was actually speaking, go and find the Gnostic text that was omitted from the Bible, the Book of Thomas. That is it shows a lot more. And then go and read the Dead Sea Scrolls and start compiling and
yeah,
looking at those. Those were not propaganda by the Roman Church. They were outside of it.
yeah, and yeah, I think there's a lot of very powerful things in there that a lot of people feel like, oh, you disagree with that. It's like, no, I just feel like there's more stuff omitted. I agree with pretty much most of the things in there, but I think there's a heck of a lot of stuff that was omitted in there that would give us an even deeper insight into Jesus or that era of time.
Well, and he also was well traveled. I think he was 14 when he left his people, and he was supposed to get married. And he said, "No, I need to travel. Like God's calling me, right?" And so he left, and he started traveling to China. He went to Tibet. He went to India. He went and he learned the world. And I think it was 31, 32, where God was like, "Hey, it's time to go to Israel. The rabbis are out of control. There's a lot of blood sacrifice, and they're just holding this over, and they need to be reminded who they really are and what we're really here for." And so he got called back, and then he started his mission.
Fascinating. Oh, that's amazing. I've got 2 amazing books to look forward to, and I think the readers now have 4 amazing
You're right.
books to look forward to. So, y'all didn't think there was homework? No, I'm kidding.
I'm all for homework always.
Yeah.
If you enjoy
Sure,
it, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This has been awesome. I really appreciate your time. This has been a really cool conversation. I feel like we've just scraped the surface, but this would be a 4-hour long podcast if we would go any deeper
Probably.
into that. But I definitely look forward to a future episode. I think
would
that'd
love
be
that.
awesome.
I would love that.
And I'm very eager. Whenever I know you're super busy, so whenever you do get a chance to read that, I'd be very eager to have a chat about those.
I will make sure that it's on my queue, and I'll add it on. We just actually finished up. So within my business, I have a book that we always did, and we actually did the Reality Unveiled. So I read it, and then I had my group read it. So I just finished it up. So I need another book, and I think I'll do that one. So thank you.
Nice. And then once again for our listeners, Reality Unveiled, and what was the second one?
For me, that was it. Well, if I can throw another book in there, I would say The Biology of Belief. So The Biology of Belief I've read no less than 8 times, and it's by Dr. Bruce Lipton. So for those of you who want more of that hard science, he's a cellular biologist gone quantum physicist, and he talks about how your biomarkers, right, and the environment is a 80%, it is a far more predicator of how your genetic expression is expressed, as opposed to the old Darwinism. And actually Darwin came back and he tried to redact his statement, but at that point everybody had run with it. So our environment dictates our genome sequencing being turned on or off, not so much what we are born with. So your environment, or what you decide to put yourself around, dictates whether disease shows up, whether you become a certain type of person. Mm-hmm. So that's a really important one, and it gives you tangible things to do as well.
Fantastic.
And the Reality Unveiled is by Zlad Masri.
Zlad Masri, very cool. I'll make sure I'll put all those into the description, just so folks can easily access that too.
Awesome. Anything else? It's by Michael Newton. Is that the one?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's pretty compelling because it's just interviews with a couple thousand people over his time of past life regression interviews. And walking through past lives and the life between lives. And while they're in that state, he's interviewing them and asking questions.
That's wonderful.
And then puts the books together based on those interviews.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ariel. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you have an amazing week, and I really look forward to connecting again.
Me too. Good luck on the passwords. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great week. Bye. Now go live awake. And if this shook something inside of you, share it with someone still sleepwalking.